Hello, Lee. Lovely to meet you.
Hey, mate. Nice to meet you too.
How's it going? How are
That's
you?
good.
How are
It
you
looks like
feeling?
the lighting scheme is a lot better in the room you're in than my room.
I
Um,
don't know. I
I'm,
like that. I like the atmospheric moon behind you. That's very.
We'll see you in court.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Oh, hi, Mark.
It's delicious. Oh my
I'm feeling good at the moment. Having a movie come out is an exciting thing. You never know how it's going to be received, but I'm really happy with it. It was such a labor of love, and I'm happy for all the people that worked on it, that their hard work is going to be out there.
And as someone who presumably grew up on horror, how does it feel now to be the person you are, getting to kind of be at the helm of these reimagining these classic stories for a modern audience?
I pinch myself every day. I'm glad I haven't lost that. I think that human beings, we're pretty adaptable, which means that we normalize things very quickly. And I don't think it takes long for us as human beings to take things for granted if we're not careful. But I have just somehow never lost that ability. Every morning that I wake up, I think, like, I'm so lucky to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm so happy. Not many people get to do what they love, so I'm really aware of that.
I'd love to know, what is your starting point or your process for when you're adapting or reimagining a classic or an iconic character or a movie? Where do you start in the process? What's your first thought with kind of breathing new life into a story?
For me, the process starts with, okay, what have we seen before? Like, what have other people done with this character? Because unlike writing an original story where you're just sort of building this thing out of nothing, you really do need to examine other people's takes on it. Because for me, I don't necessarily want to imitate someone else. It's great to pay homage, but to me, the best homage you could ever give something is to make it relevant, make it important. And with Wolfman, I was thinking, okay, we've seen these amazing werewolf transformations in so many movies. What can I do that's different? And suddenly I thought, well, what if I just slowed the whole thing down? What if this was more like a degenerative illness? And that, to me, is a tragic thing when you're thinking of something to wrap a horror movie around. The issue of dying, somebody that you love dying from a degenerative illness, that really touches a chord, with me. So that was the starting point.
And there is that real sense of it being rooted in real, believable human relationships as well. That kind of, like you say,
Right.
the gradual deterioration. How important is it for you to be able to obviously play with the big spectacle of the horror and the gore, but also dial into those really kind of human emotions and those close-knit relationships as well?
I mean, so important. They coexist in such a way. One needs the other, to me. I feel like the scares work better if you really believe and care about the people and it feels authentic. And if it's scary and tense, then that feeds into the empathy. So it's like this, machine of empathy that's sort of, if you lose one of those things, it all falls apart, And so I'm not one of those people that's like, look, I hear a lot of people when they're talking about horror films, they'll say it becomes almost a dirty word sometimes, horror. Have you noticed this with filmmakers?
Yeah.
They almost avoid that word. Like, have you ever heard a filmmaker say, well, this isn't a horror film, it's a psychological thriller. And I'm like, you're bending yourself into knots to get around this term. Why be ashamed of it? So I'm one of those filmmakers that leans into what horror fans want. I try to give them the visceral terror. I want it to be raw, intense. But I know that stuff won't work if the relationships aren't authentic. So you try your best. It's all just, I'm just trying. Invisible Man, people seem to like that film, and I was so happy about that. So I was, just trying my best. There's no formula for it, unfortunately. There's no book you can read to write a great movie.
You must have those moments where you have an idea on a page. For example, let's stick a truck up a bunch of trees. Let's do that. And then you must get there on, day one or day 50 or whatever it is and go, wait a second, how are we How are we
Yep.
going to do this? What's going to happen today? Are there any? Do you still get those moments where you go, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to achieve
Yes.
this?"
Very much so. In fact, I remember, speaking of that truck in the tree, I remember being in a forest in New Zealand at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was freezing. I'm wearing a big puffy jacket. I looked over at the producer and said, I just wrote the first line of my next script. It's exterior, Positano, day. And she was like, sounds great. And I was, it's the way you can make life hard for yourself. I do this thing when I'm writing. I really split my brain. When I'm writing a script, I don't think about the filmmaker side of me at all. So when I was in pre-production on Wolfman, I was finding out how hard I had made things for myself. The prosthetic makeup, hours and hours in the chair. A young child, who only can work a certain amount of hours. There was so many obstacles I had created for myself. But I also find that it's difficult to trust a movie if it's easy. If you're doing something and it's easy, I'm suspicious of it. So in a way, you need those challenges. It's a strange little alchemy.
But when you get to the final product and you think back to all those weeks of excitement and stress and is this going to work, is this not going to work, and then you see the final thing, is what is that feeling you get when you see it for the first time in the edit? How do you feel when you've accomplished a finished project?
Well, I've been lucky so far to feel really good about what I've done. But the interesting thing about creating something, a piece of art, whether it's a novel or a movie, whatever it is you get so close to it. For me, I feel like I'm sitting, this far away from the television. It's almost like you can't see it anymore because you're too inside of it. And I was happy with it. I felt I was happy with it, but then you throw it out into the world and you just don't know. It's not yours anymore. It doesn't belong to you. I wrote the first Saw movie. Now that film has turned into this huge franchise, and the fans of those movies, they own that film now. It's got nothing to do with me. So it weirdly changes hands. And so the best I can hope for is that thing you mentioned where you watch the edit at the end of the editing process and you say, yeah, I'm not ashamed of this. I really did what I set out to do. That's the best you can hope for, I think.
Absolutely. And you're incredibly lucky to work with an incredible cast and teams around you as well that are kind of making these projects possible. How important to you is the collaboration with all the different teams that put this together, as well as the working relationships you have with the actors? How kind of crucial are all those elements coming together?
I mean, it's essential. A movie is really not made by one person. I do think there's this myth out there of the auteur, and I personally don't believe in it because there's 200 fingerprints on a movie, and everybody has their own ideas. A costume designer has their own ideas about buttons and how the collar should sit. And, I can't make a jacket, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm in control of that. What I can do is select someone I really like as a costume designer and then empower that person to get in sync with me. I can describe what I'm going for. And I feel like that's what makes filmmaking great, is that teamwork, the collaborative art form. And if you notice from the credits in my films, I tend to go back to a lot of the same people. I've worked with Stefan Duccio. This is my third film with him. And he's a great cinematographer, and we speak the same language. We went to the same film school. He's from Melbourne. I'm from Melbourne. I love him, and I would find it hard to make a film without him. Andy Canny has edited all of my films. He and I have a similar relationship. Bea Sequeira, who is the producer on... I love seeing familiar faces because you start developing this language. So it's vastly important, I think, to foster a filmmaking family. That I see Coen Brothers movies and I see the same names in the credits and I'm like, God, they really have a family that they go back to. And I love that. I would love to build that for myself.
Well, it's really fantastic with this film, seeing all of the elements come together. Like, as you said, the drama, the sound design was incredible, I thought. The production design, the stunts,
Oh, thank you, God. That means so much. I mean, I'm very close to the flame right now. Like, I just finished making the movie. Now we're releasing it. So for you to say that, it makes me so happy about all the people who worked on it, because they really worked so hard.
Well, thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you.
An absolute
Thank
pleasure
you.
to talk to you. Best of luck with the film and huge congratulations.
I hope that a Wolfman poster makes it onto your wall right next to Longlegs one day.
I would love that.
That would be the greatest honor. Thanks.